the world probably will not fully adapt to you, most likely. And that will stay true for most of human beings for most of their lives. So if I get fixated on that perspective, now you need to change, and it's my right and your responsibility only. I'm set up for a big disappointment that I'm not prepared to take, and then it's like you said. So actually, sensitivity can become a capacity, you know, but then it needs sensitivity but also integration. So, and like you said, like in some circles, then people feel like, wow, my sensitivity has been kind of dismissed for a long time. It maybe has also been shamed. You felt like you couldn't belong into mainstream society, or what was going on in the schoolyard, like with the rough boys or the rough girls, and like, so you felt kind of like, ugh. And you find a subculture where this is suddenly highlighted, and it feels like so good. It's like, oh, finally I can relax, and it's a very powerful healing, because suddenly something that you felt was like a part that you'd rather not have suddenly becomes a quality and an asset you have. And maybe you suddenly feel like, wow, now here I'm even like, I have superpowers, because suddenly like this speaks to me. And so of course then, and again, initially it's a first healing move in your development, because you kind of like heal a split in yourself. You're not shaming yourself anymore. You feel like, I can bring something to the world. But then often comes the trap where okay, now this was good for me to embrace, so let's do more of it. And that's the catch with anything in development or in maturation, that you feel like there's one good thing and I just have to milk that cow forever. And that's like as if there's some things that are just good and some things that are just bad. But that's not how the world is set up. Even the yin yang, like you need to have both. And there's always something. If you just try to stick with the good, you will eventually meet the not good parts of it, and the other way around. And there's nothing that is so bad, as somebody wise once said, that it couldn't contribute something to the good. So then you suddenly, okay, now my sensitivity is good, so I want to be more sensitive and more sensitive and more sensitive, which eventually makes you very lopsided. And if you don't work simultaneously also on your capacity to integrate, to hold, to contain, which is not just opening, but is also like strengthening your inner world, you will maybe end up more and more becoming fragile, and kind of like feeling again even more alienated from the outer world, because it doesn't give you a good enough internal setup to really meet the world. And then what happens often is that you need to retreat even more from the world, and then you have a difficult relationship with the world, and maybe you have a difficult relationship to all the things in the world and the people and money and manifestation and bringing things into the world, because people will not knock on your doors and say, oh, we've been waiting for you. If you want to do things in the world, you need to speak and be able also to operate in the world. And that's what I then would say, like, when sometimes then sensitivity is kind of equated with fragility, because if it feels like it makes me more fragile, then the world needs to really respond to my fragility and shouldn't hurt me. And the expectation is on my environment in a way to protect me from the place that is wounded. And fragility is more a connection with like woundedness or overwhelm, which people that are more sensitive, and I think there's definitely a spectrum how people come into this world, that some people are just born from what they're supposed to do in this world to be more sensitive, like having more open senses. And there are people who have maybe the kind of mission in the world to really bring something in, and they're more like robust by nature. So if you've been more on the sensitive spectrum, you've probably been more exposed to overwhelm, because the world is loud and noisy and often not so caring. And then maybe you haven't had a good experience that your sensitivity is actually something that you can ground. You only often maybe experienced it only as something that overwhelmed you. And then either you retreated from the world, or the part in you that is sensitive retreated more from your own experience. And it lives as a kind of a challenged, overwhelmed, unwanted part of yourself.